Welcome to Coming Clean, a podcast that provides a safe place for people to be real and authentic about their struggles to overcome addiction and mental illness. This is the perfect place to share stories of triumph and tragedy with millions of other people who are secretly wrestling with demons that are destroying their lives.
The podcast will be educational and informative and will provide hope and inspiration by lighting a path to recovery that promises a better life. My name is Peter Estevez, and this is my friend and co-host,
Dr. Steve Farber, and I'd like to welcome you to today's episode.
Welcome to a new episode of Coming Clean, a safe space to bring awareness to addiction, depression, mental illness, or simply any social taboo. This platform is intended to help those interested in journeying from darkness into the light of self-reconstruction. If you listen to the similarities instead of the differences, you will eventually hear a story from one of our guests that will guide you into the light of freedom. Welcome, and thank you for being here today. Today we have our guest, Jonathan Sylvester. Jonathan, thank you. Thank you for coming in today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
It's so good to meet you. We've been talking in social media for a little while.
Yeah.
And we finally get to put together the voice and the faces and the bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it, man.
Yeah. I'm glad that this worked out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
As we talked, I usually do this via Zoom, unless I'm in San Diego, which I have a facility there that I use as a studio.
Yeah.
And I do those lives. And occasionally here in Houston, I do the podcast here live as well.
Yeah.
But let me do a quick intro on you.
Sure.
Jonathan Sylvester, after struggling with addiction for 15 years, Jonathan started his recovery journey on May 15, 2013. The desire to get sober was matched by the drive to get fit and healthy. And fit he is. Not only did he get in shape, in the best shape of his life, Jonathan followed his passion for fitness by becoming a personal trainer and nutritionist, which eventually led to building a highly successful online coaching business. Jonathan now runs Recover You, an online group coaching and an aftercare program which enables men in recovery to become leaders in every area of life by developing a stronger sobriety, an unbreakable mindset, and a better physical health. He's also the host of Sobriety Blueprint Podcast, a show that is aimed to helping men thrive in recovery and in life. That's an impressive resume.
Love that intro right there, man.
Tell us a little bit about you, Jonathan.
Yeah, so I grew up here in Houston, Texas, and I'm 32 years old, and so, man, you know, recovery's a cool deal, though, because I feel, not like that's old, but, you know, I almost feel like I'm aging in reverse sometimes, just because of I think the mental attitude and just my change in overall mindset, and definitely just like you mentioned, you know, in terms of when I came into recovery, I was really out of shape. I had never taken care of my physical body very well, and I saw the need for that, and I also always wanted that too. You know, I'd always wanted to be in great shape, but you know, I had a great childhood here growing up, and I think I'm a good example of how this disease of addiction does not discriminate. You know, I grew up in West University, not far from here, which is one of the, you know, richest neighborhoods in the U.S. now. I think maybe it's the richest or something like that, you know.
Right.
But so I never wanted for anything. I was always well provided for. You know, went to good schools, good education, good family life. You know, about the only thing that happened is my parents got divorced when I was 8 years old, and just because of the environment I grew up in, my dad was in the corporate world, and so I was, you know, going to events and things like that early on, where really just I matured quickly. And so when my parents got divorced, you know, some people might look at that as like a traumatic thing. I kind of saw that it just wasn't working out well between my parents. Like, even at 8 years old, I was like, it's just not, you know, it's okay. Like, you guys just aren't a good match. And, but man, I had a good childhood. And, you know, I did start, I guess you could say, acting out a little bit. It wasn't really bad stuff, but getting into, you know, trouble, you know, in middle school. And it was more about girls and, But none of my drinking or drug use or anything really started until high school. And so my parents gave me, a great opportunity to go to St. Thomas High School here in Houston. So,
Sure,
great
school.
All boys Catholic school, man. And I just wasted it completely. Just wasted it. I didn't, I jokingly say, but it was true. Freshman year of high school for me was weed school.
Yeah.
It was
not high school, it was weed school.
It was weed school. It was, where do I get the good weed? That's what it was about for me. It was about partying. It wasn't about education.
So was that your gateway into alcohol, into addiction?
Yeah, I think it really was. I definitely, and it's interesting, I think about this a lot. I definitely drank before I ever smoked weed or anything like that. But, I can say that for me personally, like, weed, marijuana was the gateway for me. That's really what started it all. And, I saw that very quickly, whereas for a lot of my friends, it was more of a social thing, even though I was hanging out with guys that were smoking frequently and stuff. It very quickly, I can see looking back now, that obsession of the mind that we talk about in 12-step programs ramped up quickly. Because for me, it was, okay, I'm going to smoke by myself. I'm going to smoke a lot. And it just went to that next level really quickly for me, and it progressed from there.
And I want to talk about that,
Yeah.
because I think that right there is a defining point where somebody goes from using any type of drug, from recreational into escapism.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Kids are going to experiment.
Sure.
Kids are going to try weed, they're going to try drugs, they're going to try alcohol, they're going to try whatever they're going to try.
Yeah.
But when you spend or dedicate your time getting stoned, getting high, and trying to escape, there lies the issue, there lies the problem.
Yeah.
Have you been able to correlate what was it that you were trying to escape from? Now, you talk about a great childhood, you talk about divorced parents, which unfortunately, divorce is not uncommon nowadays.
Not. Yeah.
Okay?
It's not.
However, what is more uncommon, or what is more common, is the effect that divorce has on children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because either parents disengage, one or both disengage completely from the child, or they become Disney parents. They let you do whatever you want to do in order to be able to pacify out of guilt, out of shame, out of whatever. So can you correlate what happened to you that transition?
Yeah, I wouldn't say, and it's an interesting thing, because I wouldn't say that it was really something that happened to me. I think it goes back to how I felt about myself. And growing up, I was always, don't get me wrong, I had friends, I was very social, I was involved in sports, but I felt less than, and a big part of that goes back to, I was always the chubby kid.
Okay.
I just felt less than. I didn't love myself, and I really haven't, I haven't tracked that, like pinpointed that, because man, my parents were extremely loving. Like, and of course, I was manipulating the situation like crazy.
Obviously. Yeah.
I was manipulating the situation like crazy. But, it really just goes back to, man, I just really didn't like who I was.
Now, were you chubby as a baby, or is this something that grew up? Was this after divorce? Or,
and I think about this more. I mean, there were probably time periods where, and again, I'm diving into this more and more as I get older, but I think I probably at some point started to treat food as the escape. And I can't remember moments of just like crazy overeating or anything like that. I don't really know. I don't know yet.
And the reason I'm so curious about, let me tell you why, because you mentioned two things that I totally relate to.
Yeah.
Okay. My ex-wife and I went through a divorce when my son was 8 years old, and my son went from being a happy, joyous, happy kid to bench eating. I mean, and he ballooned within about an 8 to 9 month period.
Oh, wow.
About 50 pounds.
Wow.
I mean, he
Okay.
went from being
Yeah.
a cute kid to a chubby kid. And it really took a toll on him.
Yeah.
Of course, the household dynamics completely shifted.
Yeah.
They changed. My ex-wife moved into a different neighborhood. I kept the house, but all the furnishings, all the belongings,
Sure.
everything was gone.
Sure.
Okay? So the environment was not the same environment he was accustomed to. Now, he started feeling immediately less than.
Yeah.
Okay? He felt like he was looked at differently. I think a lot of that is psychological. It's what we perceive is
Yeah.
not a reality. However, it becomes a reality when we make it a reality.
Yeah, that's
and,
true.
And unfortunately, he made that his reality.
Yeah.
And my ex-wife, also being one of us, not working a program, not active in recovery, I opted to have complete custody of my son.
Yeah.
And in fact, he came in, he moved in with me.
Okay.
I raised him as a single father, and I tried to create a very stable environment for him. And the one thing that I didn't do, I didn't talk to him about his weight. I didn't talk to him about his physical condition.
Okay.
But I started implementing disciplines.
Yeah,
Okay. Changing the food in the refrigerator,
Sure.
changing the food in the pantry, exercising a little bit more myself.
Yeah.
Both his mom and I were also always worked out, pretty healthy people. You know, I ran marathons, she ran marathons, so we're healthy people.
Yeah.
But during that period of divorce, you know, there was a lot of chaos and
Sure.
stuff around him.
Yeah.
And I could see how he gravitated to the chaos, and he used that as his springboard for depression,
Yeah.
for weed,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
getting a little bit out of control.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the reason that caught my
Yeah,
attention.
yeah. So I mean, you know, I wasn't. I mean, it definitely started to happen around that time, but it was more so my weight started to pick up just, you know, pre-puberty. So I mean, it was after my parents split up, and man, both of my parents were healthy. Like they always worked out, and so it's really, it is kind of tough for me to pinpoint because it's just like, I don't remember huge periods of binging, but man, the weight came on for sure, you know, but that was more around like 12, 13 years old that I started to get heavier. And I don't remember like huge bouts of depression or anything like that. It's just, I just didn't like who I was.
How can you remember it if you were smoking weed and you were stoned?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't smoking at that point.
Okay,
So yeah.
okay.
So I didn't start any of the drug use or anything like that until about 15, 16-ish. And so my weight fluctuated a lot, you know.
So when did it get out of control? When did the addiction get out of control?
Yeah.
When did you go from high school having fun, smoking with friends, that things got out of control? What
Yeah.
happened? Take us through that
Yeah.
journey.
So what happened was you know, one of the first things that I really got in trouble for was I stole a couple of my dad's cigars
Okay.
and sold them on my school bus to another kid.
Okay.
I've always been the entrepreneur, the salesman. I was going around the neighborhood selling candy and stuff when there were no fundraisers going on. So that said, the reason I mention that is because that selling those cigars really, you know, just kind of preceded what was about to happen in the future. A little bit of foreshadowing there because my addiction ran parallel with selling drugs.
Okay.
And so, you know, in high school, as I started to smoke weed, I think like a lot of guys maybe realize it's like, oh, well, if anything, I can just sell a little weed here and there and smoke for free or whatever. And that was the thinking initially, but then it was like, okay, well, I'm kind of good at this. And not only that, you know, one of the things I realized is it selling. So initially, the doing the drugs felt like the answer. That felt like the solution. But then the selling drugs also like just reinforced that because it was people want me around.
Sure. Empower you, the rush.
People
The
want,
rush,
yeah,
power.
and yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh.
And there's,
Yeah.
you know, and it's kind of dangerous.
Sure,
And
sure.
So, so there was that part of it. And so what happened, you know, the way that this really progressed is, for instance, you know, I was only smoking weed at the time, and then there was a point in time, you know, right at the end of high school, right at the end of high school. So like my senior year of high school, where a lot of people around me were doing coke. And so I had never done coke before, but of course, like the entrepreneur in me, I saw an opening in the market, and I was like, well, hey, I'm going to start selling it. And eventually what happened is, and this happened every time that I tried a new drug, it was, what is it that people like about this? Mm-hmm. And so that went from cocaine and tried various things. And man, it was fun at the time. I could do whatever I wanted. I was living on my own. I was paying for all my own stuff. I was going on vacations with my girlfriend. How old were you? So at the time, I would have been,
Oh, so you were in your 20s.
20s.
Yeah, in your 20s.
It's still fun at this point.
Sure.
No repercussions.
Right.
Nothing. The worst thing that's happening is, maybe I'm overdoing it some nights, like staying up for 2 days and then I would sleep it off, and I was 20. So, not a big deal. But this eventually led to, here in Houston, the pill mills, the pain pill mills were huge, and they're starting to crack down on that, thank God. And so I had people start going to these pain clinics for me because I wasn't old enough at the time. And eventually I tried the pain pills, and that became my thing. And it was, again, had never really messed around with them. One of the guys who was going to do this for me, what does this guy like about these pills? I tried it. Initially, I didn't like it. Tried it again, and man, it was just like I was hooked from there. And from that moment on, that is really, it was still fun for a little while, but I was physically addicted. The obsession of the mind went to a completely different level. And, from 20 to 26 years old is really where I started crossing all these lines, doing all these things that it became more and more unmanageable. I became more and more powerless. I started doing all these things, down the line, because I got sober when I was 26. From 24 to 26, there was a lot of stealing, lying, manipulating on a different level that I became this person to support my habit that I never thought I could possibly become.
Sure.
And that around 25 is where, 24, 25 is where I started looking for a way out. And so I tried several detoxes, and like what I would do is I would go, so the first thing that I ever did was Suboxone started to come onto the market. It actually wasn't even on the market. I did a study at UT here in the medical center for Suboxone, and of course there was counseling that went along with that, and I did that because I had to, but I didn't do any kind of 12-step anything after that. So there were a few times where I would just go, I would get the medication, I would try to take care of the physical part of this disease. I wouldn't address the mental or spiritual aspect that's talked about in the 12-step programs. I wouldn't address any of that, But
you were not working a program.
I wasn't, not at all.
You were just using, and you were trying to take care of
yourself.
I was just trying, meeting your needs.
Yeah, meeting the needs. For me personally, part of what always felt like the solution, and I see a lot of guys doing this in recovery, is I felt like money and a bigger paycheck and a job
was going to take care of the problem.
Was going to fix things.
Yeah, it was going to fix you.
Yeah.
And the more you got, the more you wanted.
The more absolutely. The more I wanted. And so when I realized, the moment when I realized that there was a really big problem, the moment that I would say like really, really scared to a new degree, to a new level, is when I had gotten a new job. I was sober. I was on Suboxone at the time.
Okay.
I had started drinking a lot more to fill that need. In my mind, I was sober because I wasn't doing the pain pills, right? Sure. I was drinking a lot more, drinking heavily. And there was this moment of there was a brief moment of real sobriety where there was nothing in my system. I think I was getting ready to go into work or something like that. And it was the first time that I hadn't had anything in my system. And I was freaked out. I mean, it was just this moment of, because, I had gotten to this point where the drugs felt like the answer. They had been the answer for years.
You didn't know anything different.
Didn't know anything different. And that didn't work anymore. And so I'm at this moment where it's like, well, what is the answer then? I was lost is what it was. And I was scared, and I didn't know what, and it was back to the races. I went back to...
You can't live with them, and you can't live without them.
Yeah. Right. So I went back to what I knew, and it was this run for a long time. And, man, it was such a God thing. What ended up happening was I was living in these condos with my girlfriend, now wife, which is a blessing and miracle in and of itself. This woman stuck with me throughout all this. But there was this older gentleman that lived across like the pool from me. And I would see younger guys going in and out of his place. And in my mind, where my thinking was, it was, well, what is this guy selling?
Yeah, the guy's a dealer.
This guy's selling something, you know? And so I approached him one day. I was like, something attracted me to this guy, though. And I still, to this day, can't really put my finger on it, but I have a little better idea now. I went up and I asked him, I wasn't going to ask him where any of the hard drugs were. So I was like, hey, man, where I can get any good weed at? And he was like, he was super cool about it and nice. He was like, no, I don't know where you're getting good weed. So one day, it was one of these moments again where I've hit another low, money is gone, because it was this roller coaster. And
Absolutely.
It was this roller coaster, right? And money would come in and it'd be okay. And then and then I'd lose another job or whatever. And I'm lying to everyone. Everyone's pissed at me as they should be. And it's this bottom again. It's up and it's down and it's all around. And so I'm going out to my car one day and he's standing there and I'm starting to walk by and he's just like, hey, do you need to talk? And I just spilled my guts to this guy. So to fast forward, this guy took me to my first meetings. I wasn't ready. I just wasn't ready. I was looking, you said at the beginning of the episode here, you talked about, looking for the similarities. I wasn't. I was looking for all the differences.
Sure, absolutely. That hasn't happened, and that hasn't happened, and I'm not him, and I still got a car, and I have a girlfriend. My wife hasn't left me. So we look at the differences.
What I still had, what I hadn't experienced yet. I'm not as crazy as this guy.
Absolutely.
Right, and so anyway, I wasn't ready. And ended up going to another outpatient detox or two. Down the line, things got to this point where I just had to go to treatment. And this is another...
When you say I had to go to treatment, what does that mean? What prompted that then and not before?
So at this point, my family knows what's going on completely. Okay. I had shielded them from this for a long time. And my girlfriend... rightfully so, called them, reached out. She was freaked out. It was just, again, it was getting to these new levels.
You were out of control.
I was out of control. I was out of control. She could see that. I've been very honest with her that if I were her, I probably would not have stuck around. That's just where I was. Looking at the person I had become, man, I probably would not have stuck around for all that. My family knew what was going on at this point, and I couldn't hide this. And there was this moment, literally the only thing I had left besides my car of any value was my cell phone at this point. And I was like, well, man, I'm going to go pawn it one more time. At this point, I'm not even getting high anymore off the pills. It's not enjoyable. And it's not even, I'm doing this to just function and survive.
Just survive. Because we go through the different stages: powerlessness, unmanageable, survival, and then insanity.
Yeah, it was insanity.
Yeah, and then we stay in that cycle until we get out.
Yeah.
Or don't.
It was insanity. It was just what was going on in my mind. I just couldn't. That's really what it was. The drugs were just kind of quieting that a little bit.
Temporarily.
Very temporarily. And again, that was another moment of just being, scared out of my mind is one of the last times that I used, I remember I literally didn't feel anything.
So your girlfriend calls your family.
Yeah.
Your family has an intervention, or
They didn't. I mean, there wasn't an official intervention, but it was like, we need to do something.
Okay.
You need to go to treatment.
And you agree without
No. So what happened is I was like, I'm going to go one more time. I'm going to go pawn my phone, go get high like that one last time. And it was this God moment, man. I locked my keys in my car. This thing beat my ass. I say it was a moment of surrender, but the last time I spoke about this with someone, they pointed out, it was, I hadn't surrendered, I'd been beaten.
That's interesting.
This thing got the best of me.
Yeah.
You know, because so I ended up going to treatment here in Houston. And when I got there, that was the moment of surrender. But it's funny, you know, because I realized right off the bat, there were the guys that were in there. I still smoked cigarettes at the time, and we were all in the little smoking area. And there were the guys looking for the differences still, right? There were the guys saying, well, I brought myself here. Well, no, I was brought here by
they
my
were still in
family.
denial. They were still in denial. They had not surrendered.
And I was sitting there saying, like, okay, maybe I wasn't dragged in here kicking and screaming, but this thing kicked the disease brought me here. I did not bring myself here. Like, I'm not here on my own accord. But, you know, luckily I'd run out of money. My detox wasn't bad. And the changing moment for me where things really, where that switch flipped was I was in detox and I was just going crazy. I had nothing to do. You couldn't go into like the meetings and stuff like that. And I begged one of the nurses, please let me go into, they called it wrap up. It was this nightly wrap up with all the guys that were actually in treatment. And at this point, I knew I was going to detox, but I didn't know I was actually going to stay here. Like that was still to be determined with my family. I was still I still had a slight reservation. I still had an out, right? Like, okay, I'll stay here for a detox and then
Yeah.
Well, I went into this meeting, and for the first time, I don't even want to say I was looking for the similarities, but I saw them, and I heard them, and I heard my story for the first time. And there were other guys going through what I had been through, and these guys weren't that far ahead of me, but they clearly had been presented with some type of solution. And man, I got vulnerable, I cried like a baby, and I decided that I was going to stay there.
So this was a meeting at rehab?
This was a meeting in rehab.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't a 12-step meeting. It was just a meeting between all the guys that were there.
Okay. And your stay at rehab, how long was it for?
30 days.
30 days. Mm-hmm. So this was like the third, fourth day you're in rehab?
Yeah, this would have been like my third day in detox probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then after that, did you continue going to the meetings?
Yeah, I did. I mean, the meetings were mandatory.
Okay.
And so this was a nightly thing.
So every night, the group gets together.
Right, yeah.
And y'all talk about sobriety.
Yeah, it was like the low for the day, the high for the day.
Okay.
And so
kind of an accountability, where you at type of meeting.
Yeah,
okay.
where you at, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And now, you got sober through a 12-step program.
I did,
Okay.
yeah.
And so when did you actually enter the program? What was your actual first meeting, and what was your experience?
Yeah. So my first meeting would have been, they actually had 12-step meetings at the time that came on to the property at the treatment center that I went to. So it was a meeting right there at the treatment center, and I knew I needed to get a sponsor, and that guy that I initially gotten as a sponsor, he was sending me I got this huge resentment. He was sending me these daily meditations by text as I was going through my last outpatient detox. And man, it was just pissing me off. It was pissing me off because I wasn't ready. I didn't want to hear any of that. I wasn't, and I called him and I was like, man, stop sending me these. I cussed him out. Well, man, I would say my first spiritual experience / definitely a spirit. I hadn't gone through the steps, but man, it was definitely the beginning of a spiritual awakening for me. Was when I was in treatment, we went to Intergroup, so like the headquarters for AA here in Houston. Uh-huh. Man, there was like traffic was awful here in Houston. There was like 10 minutes left until the bookstore there closed. Walked in, the only guy there was my first sponsor, this guy that had taken me to my first meetings. It was his like 12th AA birthday.
Okay.
He was in there getting some cards and stuff for other people. And he didn't realize I was in treatment. He thought I was just there with a bunch of other sober people. You know, how nice of him to give me the benefit of the doubt.
So this is somebody that took you to the first meeting.
Yeah, so this was a guy that lived in my condos.
Across the street from your complex.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I haven't seen this guy in a long time.
Okay.
And I walk in, and he was just like, didn't say anything at first. And he was like, what are you doing here? I was like, well, I'm in treatment. And this is my experience with how I feel about 12-step programs, how I feel about recovery, how I feel about the message that I try to do my best to carry to other men within the program. And this guy he gave me a big hug. You know, I mean, the last time that we spoke, I basically told him, you know, to F off pretty much.
Yeah.
And he gave me a big hug and he said, well, when can I come see you? And man, my jaw just, it's like I get a little emotional even just telling this because it was so powerful. Like, this couldn't be a coincidence. I had no relationship with any kind of higher power prior to this. So, you know, to cut through it, I mean, man, he came to see me. We got into the step work, and it was on. And I made a commitment to this thing. You know, he gave me the suggestion that while I was in treatment to do my mental laundry, to drop as much of this bullshit, that I had been carrying around. Can I swear on that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
He had to drop as much of this bullshit that I had been carrying around and to get rid of it, and that the steps would help take care of the rest of it. And so I did that, man. And
Tell me about that process.
Yeah.
You know, this is not your actual 4-step. This is not your inventory.
No.
This is just kind of a journal or whatever, just a mental process to get rid of that junk.
Yeah, get rid of
so
it.
exactly what does that mean? What did you do? What was your process?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that I was carrying around that it really accelerated my using to a large degree, and that I felt so much in shame and guilt over. One of my good friends, to make the story short, I had given one of my friends a bunch of pills, a bunch of Xanax to sell. They were living up in Austin. They were selling them for me. I didn't want to mess with them, and I was going to go and just pick up the money later on. Well, he and my buddy were just popping these things like crazy, and one of my really close friends, Tommy, ended up taking some. They went down to 6th Street in Austin where all the bars were. He drove home, didn't have his seatbelt on, was drunk, high on Xanax, smashed into a telephone pole, dead on impact.
Yeah. And you were carrying that guilt.
And I blame myself,
Sure.
100%.
Sure.
I killed him. And, you know, this is how simple, this is how important it is to seek help, but also just to get connected with other people that are really interested in your well-being, because this is the one thing that changed my life, my journey. This was the doing my mental laundry, was bringing this up in like a process group with my counselor. And all my counselor said to me was 2 things. Number 1, let's reverse the roles. Tommy gives you the pills. Let's say you get injured in a car wreck. You're not dead, but he comes to see you in the hospital. Would you be blaming Tommy? No. Okay, I want you to write a letter to Tommy. Talk to Tommy. Tell Tommy what's going on. Tell Tommy how you've been carrying all this around. And we're going to write that letter, and then we're going to destroy it. We're going to put it in what they call the God box.
Sure.
You know? And man, those 2 things, right? It was letting go of that.
Yeah. Release the pressure. And I want to talk back about, I want to go back into that for a second, because that's very important.
Yeah.
So your sponsor at the time, or your newly selected sponsor, so self-appointed sponsor,
right.
He gives you this task, and get rid of this mental junk that you're carrying around.
Yeah.
So what was your first step? What did you do? And I'm saying that for the community, those out there that maybe say, you know, what was that practice? Because that's a nugget that I would like to implement, or XYZ would like to
Right.
implement. What was your first process? Now, you talked about having a therapist, so you're going to meetings now, and you're also in therapy.
So this is while I'm still in treatment.
Okay, so you're in treatment.
I'm still in
the
treatment.
treatment counselor
Yeah.
is the one that gives you this feedback
this
about
assignment.
Okay, the assignment. Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
perfect.
and I'll tell you, the first thing was making a decision that realizing it was coming to this moment where I just had, it was like the principle behind the first step, honesty, right?
Sure.
Getting honest with, Jonathan, you've been running your life into the ground. You were not successful at life.
Unmanageable.
Unmanageable, period. You need to let other people to tell you what to do for a while.
Follow instructions.
So this is what it was. It was making a decision that I was going to give this 100%.
Surrender.
Yeah, I was going to completely surrender. This is what it was. I hear people call it different things or describe it different ways. It was flipping the stupid switch. The thing that it had just destroyed me.
You had a psychic change. That's basically what it was.
It was, yeah.
It was a psychic change, and that moment you made a decision, and you made a psychic change, everything changes.
Yeah. Yeah, because what I decided was, and
you go from surrendering to taking action.
It was. That's what it was. I don't know. I was a smart ass, man, for so long. You would be sitting here giving me some great advice that maybe people would pay tons of money for and people would love to hear. And I would cut you off and I would say, I know. And at this moment I saw I didn't know. I didn't know shit. I didn't know anything about staying sober. I didn't know anything about living a successful life. I didn't know anything about taking care of myself, much less taking care of anyone else. And it was deciding that I was going to take direction, but I was actually going to implement it. I was going to take action.
Sure.
I was going to take action. And that's really what it was. I mean, it sounds as simple as that, but it was a decision.
No, but it is that simple.
Yeah.
It is that simple. But in order to get to that point in simplicity, we need to have the right mindset and we need to be ready.
Yeah.
Because we can all get there, every single one of us. It doesn't matter what the addiction is, but we have to be willing to do it. Yeah. We have to be willing to get there. You obviously got there, God's intervention to making that connection with a gentleman that you came across.
Yeah.
He turned on the switch for you.
Right, yeah.
He pushed it a little bit, and then you took it and ran with it. Now, you were going to get into, I want to go back into the gentleman that used to send you, your other sponsor that used to
So
send you.
that's the same guy.
Oh, it's the same guy.
The guy that I told to fuck off.
Okay, so it's the same guy that was your neighbor.
Is my neighbor.
Okay.
Is the guy that I not randomly, ran into while I was in treatment. I had actually grabbed another sponsor. It wasn't going to work out with this guy geographically, time-wise. He wasn't going to be able to spend the time with me and so on and so forth. And, it was just this kind of like, I was starting to have faith that it's going to work out. People are telling me just to move forward, the sponsor thing will work out, and man, it did.
Okay, a lot of times, and this is one of the reasons that we started this platform. We created this community. I got sober in a 12-step program. The same program that you got sober in.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of formalities or structures in the program that can rub somebody off the wrong way.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Particularly when you're not ready, when you're not fully ready, but you're dabbling whether you want to be ready or not. You want to, but you don't want to be pressured. You don't want to be pushed.
Right.
And I think what happens, particularly in the 12-step program, is that we have a lot of the old timers with a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom, but they have not kept up with times.
Yeah.
They don't know how to interact with the younger generation, with the newer generation.
Right.
And they believe in doing everything hardcore. We're going to do it the hard way.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
We're going to teach you how to do this.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times that turns off a lot of people.
It does.
And someone that may go into a meeting may never go back into the rooms because they feel like, I can't relate to this.
Yeah, not for me.
It's not for me. I'm not there. I don't want to get there. I just saw my father treated me like my father treated me.
Yeah.
Okay? I couldn't relate to my father, and here's this guy that's a complete stranger. okay, and he's talking down at me.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that this is ill-intended in part of those members.
Right, yeah.
It's just the culture that
Yeah.
they're accustomed to, and they don't realize that culture has changed and is shifted.
Yeah.
And it's not so much that we want to be tippy-toe around or we want to be, touchy-feely, but we want to be treated like human beings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
We want to be treated with respect, and we also realize that, a lot of the things, a lot of the hang-ups that we've been carrying around have manifested as a result of the way we were being treated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
And a lot of people forget, because there's the other part of our disease where we run rapid, run wild, and we destroyed everything in our path.
Yeah.
So people want to dismiss us and make us feel like we have no rights, no feelings, no value whatsoever.
Yeah, right.
So there's this grudge and fight within us, and we want to rebel against everything in front of us.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons that we created this platform is to bring awareness that there's other options available to be able to communicate about, talk about this type of issues.
Yeah.
The exercise that you emphasize is something that I adopted. Even today, I practice it.
Yeah.
I do it in my journaling most of the time. But when I remember something that I've been holding on to, I write it down. And if it's an amends that I owe to somebody that I'm probably not going to ever see, okay, or doesn't want to see me, okay, nor do I want to see him, I write that letter, and I make my amends on that letter, and I either burn it in my sink, or I take it with me, and if I go to a different city, I shred it, and then I throw it in a trash can at the airport. Like I left it behind. It's no longer with me. I don't carry it with me anymore. So it's a great exercise.
Yeah, I like that.
So now, tell me where you at with your program of recovery today. What is it? Are you exercising a 12-step program?
Yeah.
Is that your recovery program?
No, absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
I continue to do the same things that were initially worked for me.
Okay.
And let me be very clear. This first sponsor I had, he was an interesting guy, to say the least. I mean, he was right person, right time type of deal. He rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. This guy was extreme, self-admitted, to the point where I had never been in his condo before, but the first time I went in there, behind his couch, like you have this awesome painting up here, he had the 12 steps and 12 traditions, life size, on his fucking wall. Okay. So, but at the same time, he was also very, he was a good listener. Absolutely. He was all these things. So there, with this, what I basically had to say, I had made that decision, right? I had made that commitment. And there were times where I'm thinking in my mind, like, fuck this guy, but am I willing to stay, I'm doing this. And if I can stay sober with this guy as my sponsor, then I'll be good. Because, 90% of it was good stuff,
Oh, and I get that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate his commitment.
Yeah.
His commitment to the program of recovery.
Yeah.
But you also remember, there is the new age of sobriety.
Absolutely.
It's a new age of sobriety.
Absolutely.
And the 12-step program,
it's old school.
It's old school.
Yeah.
Back in 1935.
Yeah.
When they were sobering up people, drunks that were living under a bridge.
Yeah.
They would actually go seek out people that were in mental hospitals, that were, they were locked up, and they would big book them. They would, 12-step them into sobriety.
Right, yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, their cost was great and it was phenomenal,
Sure.
but there is a new age, there is a new movement,
Yeah.
and there's new social consequences.
Absolutely.
And we have to deal with those social consequences accordingly. There's this, men typically, our way of escaping was meeting at the bar for happy hour, 4 or 5 guys, hanging out, drinking a few beers, talking bullshit, telling lies to one another,
Yeah.
Now there's this mommy wine culture, and the mommy wine culture is women that hang out at home, drink wine,
Right.
they get together from the neighborhood, they wait
Right.
for the kids to get off the bus,
Yeah.
they cook together, and they're drunk by 6, 7 o'clock in the
wasted.
evening.
Yeah.
They're completely wasted,
Yeah.
popping pills, doing other recreational drugs
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah.
But it's a different culture.
It
It's
is.
a different movement.
Yeah.
And we have to deal with it accordingly.
Yeah.
We have to adopt and understand it.
Yeah.
And we have to, if we realize that people are not as sociable, we don't congregate in places that we used to, church or parks or community hangouts.
Yeah.
You know, we're on social media.
Yeah.
We're on our iPhones.
Yeah, that's true.
We're on our
Yeah.
computers.
Yeah.
So we need to be able to adapt to that and be able to speak that language that today we understand.
Absolutely.
And,
Yeah.
and I tell you that because if I have not adopted myself, I'm much older than you are, but if I have not adopted that mentality myself,
Yeah.
I would have not been able to relate to my son.
Yeah.
My son is 19 years old, freshman in college. When I dropped him off at college, I said, hey, you're going to be exposed to everything. They're going to offer you drugs
Yeah.
and alcohol and marijuana and pills and all kinds of stuff. And I am not going to be here to take care of you or to protect you. I'm not going to even attempt to do that.
Yeah.
But I want you to remember something. And that is that if you find yourself in trouble, don't be so ashamed that you don't ask for help. Because it doesn't matter how deep in the tropes of any problem that you get into. If you ask me for help or if you
Yeah.
ask anybody for help, there is a solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
That during that time period that you were growing up, and I was growing up, there was so much shame in alcohols and in drugs that we kept it secret.
For sure.
And because we kept it secret, it permeated and it got bigger.
Yeah.
Okay. And we contained the insanity within ourselves. So, you know, at some point we exploded. And in the meantime, when we're trying to contain this insanity, we're destroying relationships,
Yeah. Yeah.
businesses, losing jobs, losing our relationship with our families,
Sure.
losing their trust. We're tornadoes. We are self-destroyers out there.
Absolutely.
So today you work in 12-step program.
Yeah, so to go back to 12-step program, you know, I'll say what's worked best for me is what worked best initially, you know, and this kind of goes into what it is that we do, you know, in the coaching program that I run, and it's really foundation of 12 steps with self-development. You know, and that's a lot of different things, but that's working on your mindset. So, you know, because in my mind, like my biggest thing, you know, if there's one message that I'm trying to share, get across to anyone, it is, you know, really no matter where they are, whether they're new to recovery or they've been around for a while, is it, man, you know, once you have this foundation down, just really the sobriety isn't enough.
Absolutely.
Sobriety's not enough, and I think a lot of people. I'll just put it this way. You know, we see sobriety's kind of like the new cool kid on the block, right? I mean, it's in every
movement.
Yeah,
it's a movement.
It's in every TV show.
It's a trend.
Yeah, absolutely, and the sober curious stuff is adding to that, and you know, not to get into that too much, but you know, the thing is that when they depict people most of the time on TV that are in recovery or in a 12-step program, man, they're fucking miserable. They're hanging on for dear life. Maybe they have years of recovery and it's like, oh, I can relapse any moment.
With all due respect, Jonathan, but that is true.
Yeah,
you
it is.
see that in those rooms.
And it is.
And that is one of the reasons I still go to meetings, but I am very selective with my meetings.
Yes.
And I also go there to remind myself what I don't want to go back to.
I
and
agree.
what I have done, I have complemented. I realized one thing.
Yeah.
My drunken log was not always bad.
No.
I had a lot of fun when I drank.
Yeah.
And I'm
Right.
not ashamed to say that.
Right.
Because there's a lot of people out there that drink sociably and they have fun.
Sure. They
Okay?
have a good time, yeah.
Alcohol is not going to go anywhere.
Right.
It's going to continue to permeate
It
in our
is.
community
It
forever
is.
and ever and
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
Okay? It's been around since God knows when. So it's not going to go away. So we need to adopt ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay? And there's people that are not allergic to alcohol. They could drink normally and they don't have a problem. And I needed to be able, I realized very early on that I had to be as happy, as joyous, and as free, sober as I did when I was drinking.
Right.
Because I often say, you know, when I drank, I had the confidence in John Wayne, the looks are George Clooney, the dance moves are John Travolta, and the swagger of Clint Eastwood.
Yeah,
okay?
I like that.
The reality is that I was just a filthy little dirty drunk.
Yeah.
But that's what
That's
he
how you
gave
felt.
me.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. And if I can get that natural high in life, being
Yeah.
sober, that's what I want.
Absolutely.
Because that's what I was looking for.
Absolutely.
I was not looking to get drunk.
No.
I was looking to change the way that I felt.
The way you felt. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the 12-step program has given me a roadmap to structure a lifestyle that I had never structured for myself.
Right.
Because of whatever circumstances, because of my psyche,
Yeah.
because blame it on my mom, blame it on
Yeah,
my dad, blame it
right.
on whatever, okay? I was not accustomed to being able to have that type of structure. Now I follow that roadmap, but in addition to 12-step,
Yeah.
I got to create something beyond that.
Yes.
Okay?
And I'm with you 100%. And all I was going to say is that I think that the message that is out there for the most part is that it's supposed to be a struggle.
But it's not.
And it's not. And so that's my thing is that, when I'm talking to a guy, whether I'm sponsoring him, coaching him, it's a new guy that I meet in a meeting or whatever, it's, hey man, this is not a liability, it's an asset.
Absolutely. So let's switch gears a little
Yeah.
bit because that gives us an opportunity to talk about your recovery blueprint.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So people work the 12-step program. Where does your recovery blueprint come in?
Yeah, so the Sobriety Blueprint.
Blueprint.
Sure,
part of
yeah.
it.
The Sobriety Blueprint is really the principles behind the Recover You coaching program.
Okay.
The Recover You coaching program is an online group community of men. Okay, and the foundation is that in a 12-step program. So
Is that a private Facebook group or what is it?
Yeah, so it's contained within a Facebook group, okay? And there's a lot of different things we do. We have community recovery meetings. We have training sessions.
Based on the 12-step program foundation or based on your own
Yeah,
principles?
so 12 steps. So the recovery meetings are based on 12-step program. So a lot of the times we'll read something in the big book or, so that'll kind of be the topic of discussion, something along those lines. But what it's really all about is becoming the best man. Our motto is recover the man you were meant to be. Recover the man you were meant to be. And this means becoming a leader, what we term a leader in every area of your life, your recovery, okay? So again, not just staying sober, not just doing the bare minimum, excelling in a 12-step program. So it's great having a sponsor, but it's also great having a coach and a group of guys to hold you accountable and give you more feedback. So a lot of the times we look at this, and the guys look at this within our program, as we talk about some of the stuff that maybe you're not comfortable talking in a meeting about. Right. Mm-hmm. Or maybe, you know what? I mean, the reality is that we're not always communicating as much as we should with our sponsors maybe. Let me bounce it off of the group. This is a safe place to bounce that off of, get some feedback from a coach, get some feedback from some other men that are all, moving in the same direction. But it's about becoming a leader in your recovery, in your relationships, finances, career, and definitely your health and fitness,
So you're creating a culture, basically.
Yeah.
Because the 12-step program basically helps you stay sober, period.
That's it.
End of story.
That's it.
Okay?
Yeah.
And sobriety is basically stopping the drink. Okay? Recovery is a process of transformation of the mind, soul, body, and spirit.
It is, yeah.
Okay? So you're adding to that. You're adding to that. And I love it. I love the principles, and I love your format that you're doing. Because again, if you go to a normal structure 12-step meeting, you're going to have some reservations as to what you say sometimes.
Yeah,
it doesn't. You cannot be fully transparent because the culture does not permit that to happen. We're still carrying the multiple masks as men.
Yeah.
And this is more prominent on men than it is on women. I mean, we don't easily communicate. We don't easily have this type of dialogue.
No, not at all.
Okay?
Not at all.
If we walk into a room, I want you to think that my cock is bigger than yours.
That's what it
and
is.
that I'm stronger than yours and that I'm tougher than yours.
Yeah.
And that, okay? Instead of having this type of dialogue, this type of conversations, this type of transparency, And I think in today's society, in today's world, this is what we need.
It is, yeah. A real conversation.
A real conversation.
Yeah, being real, being open, and it's being vulnerable. So the three principles of the Sobriety Blueprint are this. It's number one, to reinforce your recovery.
Okay.
That's, like I said, it's not just being in a 12-step program, it's excelling in a 12 service work.
Okay.
Make sure you're sponsoring. Take the suggestions and really, I'm pretty direct about this stuff, and we talk about this within our group. The guys are direct with each other. And I think that's important because this is part of what can rub people the wrong way, but this is the reality, is that I would rather be direct with you. Say you're a guy that's struggling. I would rather be direct with you and maybe hurt your feelings a little bit and tell you some shit that you really need to hear, as opposed to you maybe not hearing that from someone and going out and overdosing and never fucking coming back.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So the first part is reinforcing your recovery through a 12-step program. Also, by getting linked in with a group of men that are on the same path in life, not just in recovery, in life. Want to be the best father, want to be the best husband or partner, want to be successful in all these areas of their lives, right? So it's reinforce your recovery, it's upgrade your mindset. So a big part of what that is about is getting rid of limiting beliefs, self-limiting belief.
I love it. I love
Right?
it. So you're not surviving, you're thriving.
Man, that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's
you are thriving in
that's
life.
what it is.
Yes.
It's thriving, because when I came into the program, people told me to look for guys that had what I wanted.
I couldn't find any. Seriously.
That's honest, man.
No,
I can
and I'm being
appreciate that.
perfectly
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you,
Yeah.
I would hear stories, and I have a wonderful sponsor that has 40-something years
Yeah.
in sobriety, and I completely identify with him. Number of wives that we had together, same number of wives, okay?
Yeah.
Same number of failure businesses,
Okay.
got in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, the
Yeah.
laundry list was long.
Yeah.
It was endless. And I could identify with him. But what that did, it gave me the comfort to be able to say, well, I can talk to this guy freely
Yeah.
because he's not going to judge me.
Yeah.
So I think that's a wonderful
He
thing
gets
that we
it.
can find in those rooms.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to be judged. And then once I did the third step prayer with him, and he actually got on his knees with me, held my hands, and we did the prayer. It was the first non-transactional male-to-male relationship that I ever had.
Yeah.
Not even with my father.
Wow.
Okay? And when he did that, it was the very first time that I felt a true connection to a male.
Love it.
With somebody that cared about me without any pretenses of anything.
Yeah.
He couldn't get anything. I was fucked up.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I was on the throes of disaster. What could he want from me?
Yeah.
Other than to help me.
That's it.
So when he was willing to do that, it gave me an opportunity to lower my guard, surrender,
Yeah.
and for the first time feel a connection to him, which gave me a connection to God.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah, it's powerful.
And I tell you why that happened, because prior to that, I had a very dysfunctional relationship with my father, old, traditional,
Yeah.
no touchy-feely type of stuff,
Yeah.
because I said some type of dictatorship at home,
Right.
and a lot of dysfunction. So for me, it was very hard to correlate a relationship with God, our Father, my Father. How could I see my Father and then our Father if this is fucked up?
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah. I get
Okay?
that.
So I needed to build that trust, and when I did that, then that opened the gateway for
Yeah.
me to be able to look at things differently, look at sobriety different,
Yeah.
even look at the 12-step different, and realize something. We all go into recovery seeking what we're going to get from it. And
Yeah.
we never look in to see what we're going to contribute.
What we're going to contribute, absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
So when you shift that mind, you say,
Yeah.
okay, if I go to a meeting and I can't get what I want out of that meeting, how can I give it to that meeting?
Yeah, absolutely.
How can I give it to those rooms?
Yeah,
Okay?
absolutely.
Or
Yeah.
to other people out there that want sobriety?
Yeah.
How can I offer the type of sobriety that I want to others?
Yeah.
How can I role model that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's the attempt that we're trying to do with our community.
Yeah.
To be able to You don't have to go to a meeting.
Yeah.
Meeting, period.
Yeah.
Just drink coffee, eat a whole bunch of sweets.
Right.
Okay, smoke a whole bunch of cigarettes.
Right, yeah.
Feel miserable because after the meeting, everybody tells you how fucked up their life is.
Yeah. Right.
And you know what? Our lives can still be fucked up,
Sure.
but we don't have to permeate on that
Yeah.
shit.
That's true.
We can
Yeah.
shift our mindset
Yeah.
and look at how we transform that mindset
Yeah.
into something better for ourselves
Yeah.
and for others.
Absolutely.
And when we are looking into contributing to others, that's when real transformation happens.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's when this happens.
Yeah.
That's when this type of dialogues, and that's when we can implement and empower others to do better than
Yeah,
us.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So that's well, I was just going to wrap that up. So the second principle is upgrading your mindset, and part of that is by developing a game plan.
Okay.
Developing a game plan. It's really three things. It's knowing where you're starting out. Okay, starting to look at the facts in your life, as opposed to gauging and guiding things based on emotion or feeling. Not to say that emotions and feelings aren't real or aren't important, because they are. But for instance, you might hear a guy sit in a meeting and say, I don't know why I keep relapsing. And I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job. I feel like I'm doing what I need to be doing. And I would say, okay, well, let's look at the facts behind that. Are you going to meetings? Do you have a sponsor? Are you doing these things? Okay, so it's looking at data, essentially, right?
Taking a true self-inventory.
Taking an inventory, yeah. So it's knowing where you're starting out, what you need to improve in your life, having a game plan that then allows you to become this man that you want to be. So that's one of the first things that we have guys do within our program is establish specifically and with detail who this man is that they want to become. Because, all guys have goals and aspirations and things we want to accomplish, but what so many men don't think about is that if I can't even visualize in my mind being that person, and if I don't have a good understanding of who that is, then how is that going to materialize in my life? So I use this analogy. I get in the car to drive somewhere, but I have no idea what the address is. Well, where am I going? Well, I don't know, and I'm going to get lost. And that's what happens to men. That's what happens to men in recovery.
Yeah, you basically develop a business plan or a personal plan of where they're going.
Exactly. So it's upgrading your mindset, and then the third part is optimizing your body, and that's so much of where my background is. It's making sure, because in one part, the way you treat your body has a huge impact on your thoughts and emotions.
Absolutely.
That's just the bottom line. The way you fuel your body, whether or not you're active. If you have zero energy, you have zero confidence, you feel like shit all the time, the question is, how likely are you to be getting out of your comfort zone and doing all these things that not just sobriety, but recovery requires, like getting vulnerable with other men? And man, I love that you said that. That's how I did my third step. That's how I do third step with men I sponsor. How likely are you to go meet up with a guy when it's inconvenient, if you're feeling like shit, and get vulnerable and get down on your knees and hold hands and say the third step? Like, you're just not likely to do these things,
Absolutely.
Most importantly, though, it is about feeling better. It's about getting in good shape, but it's also because this is the missing piece for so many people, so many men, in making this full transformation into who it is they want to be. And a lot of the times I think we kind of cast aside how I look in recovery as an ego thing, right? It's ego. What does that have to do with recovery? Well, for me, it's this. It's that, when I come into recovery, I start to make all these internal changes, right? Hopefully I grow spiritually. My mindset starts to change, right? I have the psychic change. I start to think differently. All these new ideas are being presented to me. I start to grow internally. But if I look in the mirror and I see the same old Jonathan, and I'm not saying...
You gotta be miserable.
Yeah, I'm not saying I need to have a six-pack or anything, but I see the same old guy, and everyone else sees the same old guy. Man, what is going on the inside does not match what's going on the outside. I'm out of alignment.
You're exactly right. I believe in 6 principles and cornerstones of transformation: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, and educational.
I love that.
If those are not balanced,
Yeah.
then you're hopping around.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
If your body is not complete, if you're not healthy, if you are not generating natural endorphins that give you that high, that movement, the excitement to participate and be part of life, okay, to be active in life, how are you going to want to do anything else?
Yeah.
If you are not financially stable, you don't have to be rich, you don't have to be abundant, okay, in the financial sense. But if you're not meeting your needs financially, how can you be happy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay? If you are not learning and you're not growing, how can you be happy?
Yeah.
Because you cannot participate, even in society, if you don't know what the hell is going on.
That's true. That's true.
So all of it is for the benefit of ourselves. I love it. So how do people get involved how do men get involved? Do you have to be in recovery or in sobriety?
Yeah.
And what's the cost?
Yeah.
How do they get involved? How do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so they can go to our website. It's recover.net, and you can apply there. But so it's for guys in recovery. It's for and so to be clear, we've had men that have no experience with recovery. They're just looking for a way out. Somehow they come across me, maybe on Facebook or something like that, and I guide them through, a game plan, essentially. Okay, you need to find your first meeting. Okay, here's a meeting. You're going to go to that meeting. Boom, 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 boom. And, people might say, well, can't they just do that anyway? And I mean, my argument is like, I went to treatment. It cost $30,000. I got rerouted back to the 12 steps, But just because the 12 steps are there doesn't mean that you're going to be successful in it. There are nuances to this thing, right? I was not lucky, blessed enough to have this sponsor that lived across from me, literally took me by the hand, showed me the ins and outs, forced me to get out of my comfort zone, chair meetings, sponsor guys, boom, boom, boom. I had that accountability. I had that game plan. Most guys don't have that. And then again, what I'm saying within our program, it's really, and this has been my experience, it's 12 steps are awesome. They can change your life. But let's do some other things too. Sure. You touched on finances. You touched on education. Let's continue to grow, right? And it's really things that are going to complement a 12-step program. But yeah, so I have guys that have no experience with some guys right now that have 6-9 months of sobriety that are doing great, that were the guys that would not really speak, would not open up, and they've changed and their lives are changing, and it's and the bare minimum is that they're sober now. Perfect. It's not, so it's awesome. But then there are also men that have 10, 15, 20 plus years. Something's missing. A lot of the times it's health. A lot of the times it comes down to time management and organization. They don't have a game plan. They don't have structure or accountability. So they're in recovery. If you're not in a 12-step program, that's where I'm going to send you initially, and that's going to be part of your game plan. And so when guys come in, the pricing really varies based on, there's a minimum time commitment of 3 months.
Okay.
And the reality is I'm not here to tell you that your life is going to completely change in a month. It's going to take about 90 days for you to really start a lot of guys see a difference in their lives pretty quickly,
Your life is going to change when you make a decision to change your life.
That's really what it is. What I'm saying is within 90 days, you're going to see a drastic difference, body, mind, spirit, in recovery.
I love it.
That's what I'm saying. And and I love coaching these guys. I love working with these men, and they, like I said, they don't just stay sober. They get in great shape. They get raises at their jobs. Their relationships get better. And they can go to the website and apply there.
Tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, the Sobriety Blueprint. So, you actually already said it. I mean, the tagline of the Sobriety Blueprint is that it's a men's guide for thriving and recovery in life. It's about thriving. And a big part of this for me, number one, was putting myself out there, getting out of my comfort zone, living my life as the real me. Most people know I'm in recovery, But, I don't know if it's shame or guilt or what, but I was holding back. I'm really proud of this guy that I am now.
You should be.
And I should be,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And I should be. And for what?
How can you instill
Yeah.
anything else on anyone else if you don't have it within yourself?
No, right. Yeah, how can I transmit what I don't have?
How can you transmit it?
Yeah. And I was I was scared to show that to people, and I because I knew that it meant I would have to talk about the old Jonathan. And so the first episode of the podcast was me telling my story and putting all my shit out there.
I did the same thing. It was in the third episode. I laid it all out, but it felt good. It felt phenomenal.
Man, absolutely.
It felt phenomenal.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised how many people either message me or call me and were glad to hear my story, or happy that I was so transparent.
Yeah.
We have a tendency of building all these walls around us that we don't even know they exist.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
And we become so unapproachable, particularly during our period of our disease, that people don't know how to talk to us.
Yeah.
They don't know how to look at us. And today I see how my relationships with people just beam and they light up, and I'm excited to see people, and I am welcome in the rooms instead of
fuck, it's Peter.
Yeah, exactly. I'm welcome. People
Yeah.
are happy to see me.
Yeah.
But it's a process of transformation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a process of not going into the room. It's funny because even in my very first early meetings, I used to walk into an AA meeting and I used to scan the room and see where the pretty girls were at. And then one day I literally sat in my car and I prayed. I pray and I say, God, just remove that reception and allow me to focus on what I'm here for.
Yeah.
My purpose to be sober, to be healthy, and to be a good member of society. And just as simple as that, just that simple little prayer that took 30 seconds, I went in there with a completely different purpose.
That's awesome.
But this is some of the things that we learn to do in recovery.
Yeah.
That break those bad habits that we don't even know that they exist.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, so they can find me, they can reach out to me personally, Jonathan Sylvester on Facebook. And I'm on Instagram as well. It's recover.u. And so, they can reach out to me there, and they can also find Recover U on Facebook, obviously. And the website, again, is recoveru.net. And then the Sobriety Blueprint, they can find on Spotify, Apple Music or Apple Podcasts, and the sobrietyblueprint.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And any parting words, any closing words?
Yeah, I mean, I think, that if anyone's struggling out there, just get plugged in. Get plugged in. It's not I would just say that it's not a weakness to reach out. You look at the most successful people in the world, and they have a team.
Absolutely.
That CEOs, billionaires, athletes, they have teams, they have coaches, they have people that don't just keep them accountable and pull them out of this pit that we're in initially when we get sober. It's taking them to that next level, and I believe in that 100%. And I'll just say that, there is no limit to how good your life can get in recovery. There's no limit. There's no ceiling. You keep investing in it, and you're going to keep getting those returns.
You heard it here on Coming Clean Podcast. Jonathan Sylvester. Watch this episode coming up. Thank you for being here with us. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram at Coming Clean Podcast. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you for listening. And if you have not subscribed, please do so today. Thank you, and we look forward to having you in our next podcast.